It's 31 days until the presidential and parliamentary elections here in Ghana. Hello and welcome to Joy News Prime with me, Samuel Kojo Brace. Coming up this hour, Speaker of Parliament alleges grand collusion between the executive and judiciary to undermine Parliament in an holds-barred press conference on recent controversy on the declaration of some seats as vacant.
Recent acts of the judiciary and executive, and I see them as interference in the workings of Parliament, pose a direct challenge to the essence of the esteemed institution of Parliament.
We have details as the NDC insists it is still the majority in Parliament.
Tomorrow, as a result of the directive of Mr. Speaker, in line with the Constitution and standing orders, the majority NDC shall attend upon the House at appropriate time as directed by Mr. Speaker.
The Electoral Commission submits a final voters register to political parties and independent candidates, describing it as, quote, fit, robust and credible to deliver transparent elections, despite opposition from the NDC. We'll hear from the NDC, which described the final register as incomplete. Now, we'll take you live today to the Electoral Commission for latest coming in from there. But also in the bulletin, latest report from Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO, raises concern over low voter education ahead of election 2024. As it says, voter engagement has dropped to a low as 12%, less than 30 days to election. And also, 34,000 fresh HIV infections in 9 months raises major concerns among civil society organizations in the fight against the disease as they demand additional preventive measures to tackle the spread. Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin says there is a grand agenda by both the executive and the judiciary to weaken and undermine the Parliament of Ghana. Now, in a no-holds-barred press conference to address recent controversies over the declaration of some seats as vacant, Alban Bagbin described the recent development as a power play and an interference by both the executive and the judiciary to interfere in the duty of Parliament. The Speaker claimed the conduct of both arms are destabilizing Ghana's democracy. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kwekwa Asante has more in this report.
Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin has broken his silence on this controversy surrounding his declaration of 4 seats as vacant. The matters have ended up at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has made interim orders. The Speaker of Parliament instructed his lawyers to take the matters up in the Supreme Court to have those rulings made by the Supreme Court vacated. The court rejected that position. The Speaker of Parliament, speaking for the first time in an interaction with journalists in Parliament, said it appears there is a collusion between the executive and the judiciary to weaken Parliament.
The current brouhaha may be likened to a power play between the arms of government. Recent acts of the judiciary and executive, and I see them as interference in the workings of Parliament, pose a direct challenge to the essence, jurisdiction, authority, powers, and functioning of the esteemed institution of Parliament. The judiciary and the executive are seemingly colluding to weaken Parliament.
The Speaker of Parliament says, despite the NPP not having enough numbers to actually ram their business through, as we have seen in previous Parliament, he and the NDC MPs have bended over backwards sometimes to allow government business through.
The NDC members of Parliament, however, understood the situation and on a daily basis cooperated with the NPP members of Parliament to see government business through. In spite of this, the NDC members are said to be saboteurs of government business.
The Speaker of Parliament says some of these matters that have ended up at the Supreme Court could have been handled maturely in Parliament. He says both the President and the Supreme Court have sinned against the Constitution of Ghana.
The powers of the judiciary ends where the nose of Parliament starts. The Constitution is very clear on freedom of speech and of proceedings of Parliament. This was exhibited by the President's refusal to even receive the LGBTQ plus bill, duly processed and passed by Parliament, without any legal basis. The judiciary is supportive of this conduct by the receipt and processing of a suit on this subject matter. These are dangerous precedents in our democratic journey. Both the President and the judiciary have sinned against the Constitution and must seek the opportunity to confess and repent to be forgiven.
Alban Bagbin does not believe justice has been done in this case. He cites other issues when the Supreme Court actually decided to block members of Parliament from actually coming to the House to represent their constituents, and said, where will there be justice if at this point in time you say these MPs whose seats have been declared vacant cannot represent their constituents?
Justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done in all cases, not in only those cases to which some people appear to be sentimentally attached. Fellow Ghanaians, I respectfully call on the Supreme Court to apply the same swiftness with which the motion ex parte in the Eastern matter was granted to the case involving the President's refusal to receive the Human Rights and Family Values Bill.
You will recall that the Attorney General in court did say that the Speaker of Parliament had committed a crime by illegally procuring the services of Thaddeus Sori. The Speaker of Parliament has been firing back.
He's the Attorney General. He did his service in Parliament here. I was leader then, when he was doing his service here. Yes. So I know him very well before he became Attorney General. There's vast difference between Parliament as an institution and the office of the Speaker. Because I'll meet the Attorney General and I'll tell him my peace of mind on some legal issues and pronouncements he made at the Supreme Court.
During that same proceedings at the Supreme Court, Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono did indicate that it appeared to her that there was a constitutional crisis. The Speaker of Parliament says nothing of that sort is happening currently in the country.
There is no constitutional crisis in this country. The Parliament of Ghana is alive and working. Let nobody mislead, misinform, or disinform you and the country.
So what exactly is going to happen in the House tomorrow in terms of the seating arrangement? The Speaker of Parliament says that is not his job. It is said to be a showdown again tomorrow because both sides are taking entrenched positions, calling themselves the majority, with the NDC MPs clearly signaling their intent to take the right-hand side of the Speaker of Parliament. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
Still staying in Parliament, with Parliament set to reconvene tomorrow. The NDC MPs insist they are the majority and will take the right-hand side of the Speaker tomorrow.
Tomorrow, as a result of the directive of Mr. Speaker, in line with the Constitution and standing orders, the majority NDC shall attend upon the House at appropriate time as directed by Mr. Speaker. We shall take our rightful place in the chamber as to where we sit and wait for whatever businesses that may come in front of us. Our advice to our colleagues in the minority NPP is to try and prioritize business that is in the interest of the people of this country. And they shall find favor and cooperation with us in trying to deal with those businesses. We can assure them that as long as the business is in the interest of improving the lot of Ghanaians, they can count on the majority NDC caucus in Parliament to support those initiatives to pass those things that would help the people of this country. So it is a very brief information we are giving you. We will be attending upon the House as directed by Mr. Speaker. We shall be taking our seat in the chamber in accordance to the majority side, which we are in Parliament, and we shall be open to supporting our colleagues in the minority to conduct businesses that are in the interest of the people of this country.
Meanwhile, Attorney General Godfred Yeboah Dame is insisting that the court's orders, which reversed the Speaker's previous ruling for 4 MPs to vacate their seats, are non-negotiable. Failure to heed the orders, he believes, will lead to total anarchy. Mr. Dame also dismissed claims that sovereignty resides in Parliament. He spoke in an interview with my colleague Kojo Nyankson.
There's frequent reference to freedom of speech, of debate and proceedings. It is misconstrued. That freedom of speech and debate, it is related to the conduct of proceedings in Parliament. And so the courts have appeared long ago, and they continue to do so, that they will never interfere with the conduct of proceedings. And so in that regard, it would be wrong for the court to say that this decision or this motion was taken by the Speaker of Parliament when it was not in compliance with the standing orders of Parliament. That would be wrong. The only way in which a decision taken by a Speaker can be struck down as unconstitutional is when it is not in compliance with the specific provision of the Constitution. And we saw that in Justice Abdullahi and Attorney General, where a decision of Parliament which was taken not in accordance with the requisite quorum for such a decision set by the Constitution was held to be unconstitutional. The same also applied in other situations and all. So I think 2 fundamental principles have to be recognized. And I think I would like to leave the people of Ghana with it. That number 1, Article 1, the opening provision of the Constitution vests the sovereignty in the people of Ghana. Any teachings by some people about sovereignty being in Parliament and or any other institution is wrong. It's totally wrong, and that is non-negotiable. It cannot be negotiated. It's a point that must be upheld. Sovereignty is not in any institution or individual in the country. Secondly, supremacy is not in any individual in the country. Supremacy is in the Constitution. And the Constitution, when it sets out certain functions and rules for people to perform, that must be observed. The judiciary is vested with final judicial power. The Supreme Court is vested with authority to interpret the Constitution and to enforce the Constitution. The power of the Supreme Court to enforce the Constitution is only subject to the High Court's power to enforce fundamental human rights. Apart from fundamental human rights provisions in the Constitution, any other provision in the Constitution is supposed to be enforced by the Supreme Court. And in consequence of that, the Supreme Court has the power to issue orders, directions, and decisions for people to comply with, and that must be done. And I think that it's also, again, non-negotiable for persons to obey orders, directions, and decisions of the Supreme Court of Ghana. A failure to obey this, or a failure to adhere to this, will lead the nation down anarchy, and it must be avoided.
Away from that, the latest report from the Coalition of Domestic Observers, Domestic Election Observers, CODEO, has raised concerns over low level of education for voters ahead of the 2024 general elections. According to CODEO, ongoing voter education exercise embarked on by the Electoral Commission has reached only 12% of the voter population. CODEO also cited the 2 major political parties, the National Democratic Congress, NDC, and the New Patriotic Party, the NPP, to have mostly engaged with voters compared to the smaller political parties whose engagement has been ranked at 12%. Now, let's share with you details of this CODEO report. Now, it says civic and voter education activities. So these are the key issues: party voter engagement on policies, abuse of incumbency, and election security. But if you break it down into party voter engagement on policies, the NDC is represented in green, the NPP is represented in blue, and the other parties are represented in the ash color. If you look at it, on the economy, the NPP has engaged about 55% of the citizens, or its engagement with the citizens is pegged at 55%. NDC has done 74%. On unemployment, the NPP's engagement with the citizens is pegged at 58%, whilst that of the NDC is pegged at 69%. That of smaller parties is 20%. On education, the governing NPP has engaged, its engagement with the voter population is pegged at 77%, whilst that of the NDC is pegged at 68%. Compared to the other smaller parties, they are doing 16%. On corruption, the NDC has, its engagement with the voter population is around 59%. That of the NPP is around 21%. For smaller parties, it is 13%. Water, health, sanitation, the NDC is doing 55% compared to NPP 52%, whilst the other smaller parties are doing 11%. For food and agriculture, the NDC is doing 46%, whilst the NPP and its engagement with the voter population has been pegged at 53%. The other smaller parties are doing 10%. With crime and security, the NDC's engagement is pegged at 29%. The NPP is at 30%, while the smaller parties are doing 6%. So this is what Kodeo is saying. Now, Kodeo says, in the case of abuse of incumbency, its observers reported some cases of potential abuse of incumbency by incumbent candidates or on their behalf by appointees of the government. So this is what Kodeo is saying. Now, so what it is in terms of the constituencies. In Ejra Sachiduma, it says MPP candidate flyers were seen on government road equipment. You remember the drip equipment that was were recently distributed. In Kintampo South, the use of government school buses was used to transport some party supporters. Asawase, use of state-owned BRT buses for transporting supporters. This, of course, isn't that happened at Kintampo South. Daboya Mankarugu says these are assembly vehicles for MPP campaign. So in the campaign that the MPP embarked on in that particular constituency, they used district assembly vehicles, for those activities. Now, on election security, Kodeo says its observers reported no instance of violence, intimidation, or harassment targeting women. No incident of religious leaders supporting political parties or candidates. Observers noted no police, military, or security agency brutalities against candidates or supporters, and police did not deny permission for any party or candidate to hold rallies. Now, what is the Kodeo recommending? Kodeo says it urges the Electoral Commission, NCC, media, and civil society organizations to increase civic and voter education. It also urges political parties and candidates to avoid vote buying and inducement. And it is reminding government appointees of the prohibition against conflict of interest under Article 284 of the 1992 Constitution, urging them to avoid using state resources for private campaigning activities. So those are the recommendations from the Kodeo there. Now let's take you to the United States now, where Donald Trump has defeated Kamala Harris to become the 47th president of the United States. What does his presidency hold for Ghana's diplomatic ties, trade relations, and regional security? Stay with us as we delve into the potential impact on Ghana and the broader African continent. We'll analyze this with an international relations expert shortly. Before that, though, let's speak to DW's Arthur Sullivan, who's been monitoring events in Berlin, Germany. Arthur, grateful for joining us here. Now, how is Europe reacting to Trump's stunning victory?
We're still in the early stages of the reaction to this victory by Donald Trump, but we already have seen several European leaders congratulate him in a sort of formal way, keeping things simple. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron among those, extending congratulations to Donald Trump and saying that they are looking forward to working with him over the coming 4 years. But notably, indeed, we are seeing quite stronger reactions from some of Europe's major leaders of the far right. Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, Salvini in Italy, and indeed here in Germany, Alice Weidel from the Alternative for Germany, a far right party which is doing quite well at the moment in this country. very, very heartfelt congratulations towards Donald Trump, which I guess shows you the type of political alignment in Europe and how the reaction to this victory is going. They generally align with him on issues around immigration, on attitudes to climate change, and in general on what they refer to as woke ideology, trans ideology, these types of culture war issues. They seem to be aligned with Trump, and that is reflected in the reactions. But from the leaders of European countries, the prime ministers and so on, it's more diplomatic, formal language greeting this victory of Donald Trump.
But there's a bit of curiosity here, because in the run-up to this election, most European leaders were hoping for a Harris victory. Why were these EU and most European leaders hoping that Harris would win?
Yes, although many of them didn't outwardly say that they wanted Kamala Harris to win this election, it was very clear that they did for several reasons. Really, the previous Donald Trump term from 2016 to 2020 was extremely controversial from a European perspective for many ways, and also very unpredictable. Trump was unpredictable on several fronts, from defence to economics and many other areas. He obviously levelled tariffs, which led to the trade war with China. He also, at several points, talked about wanting to pull the United States out of NATO. And given what's happened in the world since then, the global pandemic, the war in Ukraine, these issues are still very, very important for European leaders to grapple with. And the last thing that they want in the White House is an unpredictable leader, someone who may bring more tariffs in, which would obviously affect the European economy, but also, probably more critically, the uncertainty that Trump's re-election brings towards NATO, that major military alliance between the United States and Europe at such a critical time in the war in Ukraine, with Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. NATO's position as a defender of Europe and that alliance with the US, that immediately becomes somewhat more uncertain. Will the US remain as committed to NATO under Donald Trump as it was in the last 4 years under Joe Biden? If we go by his public comments, it would appear not. So that
Interesting. Arthur Sullivan there with the DW-TV there. Now, let's in Accra, where some Ghanaians have shared their views on the US elections and its similarities with that of Ghana.
Election will have great impact in Ghana's election, because we can use the past things that have happened, which, let's say, Trump by then was one time a president that they said, okay, fine, your governance is not that okay for us, so we don't like you anymore. But today, Trump is being re-elected to be a current president that we have now. So it can have the same effects on John Mahama, that today John Mahama can be re-elected. But
I know that this vice president was pretending to be a driver's mate, and he was defeated at the long run. And so, bring it here. I'm of the view that the same thing will happen here. That we also have a vice president who was also pretending to be a very good driver's mate. And what will happen is this. We have been following the U.S. elections for some time now, and most of the time, their elections match with us.
Just watching Joy News Prime. We'll take a break here. I'll be back with more. Please do stay. Welcome back from the break. And the Ghana HIV and AIDS Network, GHANET, is calling for an urgent introduction of new technologies to combat the spread of HIV in the country following a surge in new HIV cases. The National HIV and AIDS Control Program of the Ghana Health Service has reported over 34,000 new HIV infections detected among 1.3 million people screened and tested from January to the third quarter of 2024. Reacting to the new infections, GHANET President Ernest Amwabeng Otson insists that new forms of prevention must be introduced to augment existing measures. We'll hear from him shortly, but first, here is the program's manager at the National HIV and AIDS Control Program, Dr. Stephen Ayisi Ado, attributing the increase in HIV infections to public complacency.
It's a worry situation. I mean, in this day and age, it's worrying for two things. It's worrying because it means that new transmissions are occurring quietly, despite the fact that people think that HIV is no more an issue. Now, since last year, I have led the campaign to let people realize that HIV is still an issue. We have treatment and people are not looking sick and all that, but there is some, like, a complacency, and transmission is still occurring in magnitudes that we are not expecting, we are not happy with. So it's worrying. And if we have such a cohort, a reservoir of people who have HIV, it means that they are gradually also quietly will be transmitting it to other people. And so it continues to increase. In a country where we thought that we are fine, our prevalence less than if you take 100 people too, and this is happening, it means that, and in fact, if you just oppose it against the STI prevalence and the condom coverage, which is low, then transmission is occurring because people are having unprotected sex, so it's worrying.
But President of Ghana, Ernest Amoabeng Otsen, insists additional technologies must be introduced to tackle the spread among young people.
It actually means that our message is not going down very well. It looks like people are not taking the message quite seriously. So it means that we also need to redesign our strategies. Especially in this era of social media, it appears we need to redesign our messages. And then also we need to look at condom as a main prevention tool. It appears that we also be having challenges. So can we consider newer technologies like PrEP and PEP? Maybe these are some of the things we can introduce in our HIV programming for the younger generation to protect themselves against infections.
Well, away from that, fresh controversy surrounds the electoral roll as the Electoral Commission submits its final voters register to political parties. An independent candidate describing it as, quote, fit, robust, and credible, unquote, to deliver transparent elections. This assurance comes amid strong opposition from the NDC, which has raised concerns about the register's accuracy and inclusiveness. Since the last voter exhibition exercise, the Commission says they have resolved all outstanding issues raised earlier about the register. My colleague Michael Ashley has been monitoring the situation from the EC's headquarters and joins us now with more details. Michael, let's start with the address of the EC chair, Jane Mesa. What did she say?
Well, Kojo Brace, we are coming to you live from the headquarters of the Electoral Commission. And this is supposed to be one of the big days if you look at the political calendar. On today, the Electoral Commission is expected to hand over the true and certified copy. These are the words of the Electoral Commission. Hand it over to the various political parties. There are some challenges. But we can first listen to the Commissioner herself, Jean Mensah. What she makes of this particular one. We know that the voter register has been at the center of a lot of controversy and a lot of action and questions from the NDC, for instance. But the EC says today that all of those issues have been cleared. At least 150 of them have been cleared, and that this particular one that they're handing over today to the various political parties is the true and certified final copy of the voters register. We can listen to her.
The Commission pledged to the good people of Ghana and to you, our key stakeholders, namely the political parties and the presidential candidates of the 2024 general election, to present you with the final certified voters register within a specific time. The purpose of our meeting here this afternoon is to present you with the final certified copies of the 2024 voters register. As you may recall, at our last IPAC meeting held on Tuesday, the 15th of October 2024, the Commission indicated that it would provide the soft copies of the certified final voters register for the 2024 general election to political parties ahead of time. In fulfillment of that undertaking to you and to the good people of Ghana, we will today, Wednesday, the 6th of November, present you with the soft copies of the final certified voters register for the 2024 general election. At the meeting of IPAC on the 15th of October, we indicated that this presentation will be made to you at the end of the first week of November. However, with the help of God, we've been able to do that 2 days before the 8th, which signifies the end of the first week.
Papa, not everyone was happy about this. The NDC in particular raised some issues. What exactly was their bone of contention?
So the NDC raised two major issues with the final register coming from the Electoral Commission. First has to do with what are the final statistics that the EC has. I mean, I've been coming here for some time, and that usually the tradition is that the EC will always put out the final statistics as they have it at the time that they announce it to the public and to the various political parties. That didn't happen to them. That is what the NDC is asking for. Again, they're also citing the last year, the one that will be used for this election, Regulation 27 specifically, and they say that, well, in that regulation, the process for certifying the voters register would have been outlined there. They don't believe that the EC has gone by that particular one, where there will be an education committee that will be set up to look into this particular register. That, in the NDC's opinion, has not been done. But the EC has been away from here for almost 2 hours, waiting for that to finish the political parties together with the media houses that are here with the final statistics as they have it. And that hasn't happened. They left here around 5:30, and it's almost 8 p.m. now. So that puts us around 2 hours and 30 minutes.
So that's exactly, what exactly is happening as of now? You mentioned that you are still waiting. What's happening?
Well, about 15 minutes ago, Dr. Bosman Asare, who is the Deputy Commissioner of the Electoral Commission, told us that, hinted us that the Commissioner herself was going to walk in at that time. But 15 minutes now, that hasn't happened. We are still waiting for the Commissioner herself, together with the folks from the IT Department of the Electoral Commission, to come and give us the final statistics. You can see the likes of Tanku Computer from the NDC, Evans Nemaku from the MPP, and all the other political candidates, all those on the electoral room. They are waiting here today, waiting for the Electoral Commission to give them the final statistics as they have it. The challenge is that they don't want to leave here not knowing the numbers as the EC has it, so that when they raise those issues later, there will not be a back and forth in terms of the numbers as they have it. The NDC, for instance, says that the Electoral Commission has a penchant for putting out figures that does not tally what they have, and that they want that done today before they leave here. Other than that, they're not going to leave here, will not leave with the register as they had it. Earlier, they refused to take the the voters register, but after a few consultations, they have taken it now. But they will not leave here without the final statistics from the Electoral Commission.
All right, so we will be bringing you more details from the Electoral Commission headquarters, where Papani actually is monitoring the process there. This is still Joy News Prime. We'll take a break here, but we'll bring you more, so kindly do stay. Welcome back from the break. Now, tracking and measuring fires is essential to reducing their impact on the environment. Wildfires greatly influence climate change and atmospheric emissions, making real-time monitoring crucial. Thanks to Earth observation data and advanced cloud computing, the Earth Observation Research and Innovation Center at the University of Energy and Natural Resources has developed a powerful fire mapping tool, delivering fast, detailed and reliable information for wildfire response teams. Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin has more into this climate focus series.
This room, the Yorick Lab, we have the servers and then the processing desktops that process the satellite data that is received, as well as archive it over here. And so essentially, the desktops that are processing, the servers that send information to the ground stations outside to move whenever there's a pass are all in here.
This is the control room where a team of engineers and scientists collect and analyze satellite data. The system enables them to track satellite data products in real time for several applications such as land use, wildfire monitoring, weather forecasting, and climate modeling, among others.
The Earth Observation Research and Innovation
Engineer Ekosi is the ground systems manager.
So the Earth Observing System affords us with satellite information data that helps us to detect fire hotspots in Ghana and in West Africa. The information is fed into an advanced virtual fire information system, which is an ICC-based information, to alert farmers and then other stakeholders about areas where fire is of high risk and where fires are currently occurring. But if I scroll in, we have one here in Kumasi. We are yet to investigate and see exactly where it is, but there's one fire around here.
The Earth Observation System is about 10 steps outside the strong room. It is Ghana's only provider of near real-time Earth observation satellite data.
Some of the satellites that we receive or track information from include the NASA Aqua, NASA Terra, Suomi MPP, JPSS, NOAA 18 and 19, METOP A, METOP B. So even though we have this infrastructure located here installed in Sunyani, the combined SWAT area for the satellite data products covers the whole of West Africa, some portions of East Africa, and then Northern Africa as well. This infrastructure is currently the only one in Ghana serving this purpose and providing Earth observation related satellite data products in Ghana.
This ground station behind me collects data for weather forecasting, surface weather analysis, climate modeling, among others. It forms part of 10 Cosmic 2 project across the world, the only one in West Africa and 2 in Africa.
The ground station we have is a critical infrastructure in the space industry.
A report by Mohamed Nuruddin.
Well, and that's how we wrap up today's bulletin, but we're still keeping tabs on what's happening at the EC headquarters, and we will bring you that live here on Joy News. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. Stay tuned. Good evening.